I want to pick apart a few of the things you brought up.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a pure blind date.
Yep.
Why a pure blind date?
Because we get in our own heads over things. We are
Such
stuck
as?
on we're stuck on height. We're stuck on we don't because when you look at somebody, you don't see their key values. I want somebody who maybe I'm very religious, maybe I'm very family oriented. I might look at somebody and I don't know if they want to have children. I don't know what they do for a career. Maybe I don't like somebody who has a man bun. Those are things that they're surface level. You can get over that. Height isn't going to pay your mortgage. Height isn't going to raise your children. So let's remove that because you're here to work with me for a reason. So I want to get you out of that. I honestly don't talk to people about their height. I don't talk to them about how much money they make. These are the items because remember, we've gone through and we've done that coaching. So we've identified your 5 key values. We've identified your preferences.
And through that coaching period, you've worked, you've identified the key values. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing I wanted to mention. You mentioned both key values and family. Are those intertwined?
So some of the examples of key values could be your career, finances, could be health, either mental health, could be physical health. You're going to have family oriented, religion, politics. We're seeing social justice. So those are some of the key ones that science has proved. And we like people who like us. So for me, I'm 44 years old. My son is 22. I don't want to have any more children. So I'm not going to go out and date somebody who wants to get married and have children. That makes no sense. I'm never going to have them. Why am I going to waste my time and that person's time? So the family oriented is going to be in the bottom. If they have children, that's great. That's fine. But if they want to have more, I'm not that person. Why am I going to go and waste my time and that person's time? Does that make sense?
It does.
So what also happens when you've identified these key values, we're now going to sit, we're going to talk. What questions are you going to ask to bring those out so you can understand? Yes, as a matchmaker, I'm doing that first little vetting that, yes, you want to have a family, you want to have children. But as you start dating, when do we bring these things up? What's going on? The idea of a first date is not to be, the idea of the first date, you want a second date. That's the goal. But you don't want to have an interview process. What's your 5-year plan? What's this and that? I haven't even decided what I want to eat for dinner, and you're asking me what my 5-year plan is? You're quiet.
I gotcha. I'm curious about a number of things there. So let's get to the family thing because you mentioned wanting a family history. From your perspective, what does your family history say about how you date or what you look in a date?
If your parents are still together, you've seen a happy, healthy relationship. It could be happy, it could be bad. So this is what, we need to understand is, was one parent absent? Were you raised with one parent? Tell me about your family. Are you close? Do you have 30 cousins? Do you get together every year at Christmas time? So this helps me when me asking those questions and asking how you were brought up helps me understand your family dynamic and helps me understand if family is important. A lot of the times when I'm talking and doing this intake, I already know what my clients' key values are before they do. So I have a series of questions that they go through. So it helps me understand. So you'll be amazed. I've noticed it's important for people that they really like that their parents are still together, their potential date. Because if they've had a happy, healthy childhood and, family dynamic, it's good because you got to remember when you marry people or date people, their drama kind of becomes your drama a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So if you haven't seen a happy family, is it extra work? Is it extra coaching? Or is it just wherever the person is?
You just kind of, you're a little bit more aware and just, let's get out of our way. And, sometimes too, it's just changing people's mindsets on things. And it's kind of guiding them and, all right, let's think about this. Let's think a little bit differently. You're asking questions to kind of drill in a little bit more with them. The height thing tends to be a really big one with, women. So like my grandparents were married 50 years and 4 days. My grandmother was probably 4 inches taller than my grandfather. So it was always kind of like that. That to me doesn't bother me. What ends up happening, science shows that for some folks that are, they're not comfortable, they're not confident. So if you're a confident individual, you're going to be confident with the fact that your partner's shorter than you, that it's not going to bother you as a female. A lot of times what that is that they're not comfortable with themselves. You're going to hear, it's the safety, it's the security. I want somebody who's bigger than me that's going to make me feel, safe. But let's define that further. What is safe? Do you want to be protected? Do you want somebody who's home every night? Do you want somebody who's financially can take care of you? Things of that nature. So you have to drill down. You have to break it, really get to the root of it and what it is. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It also speaks to another thing I wanted to pull out that you mentioned a couple times, which was patterns. It seems like height, for example, for someone could be a pattern. You may want that height. That may be I'll give you an example from my life. A girl I went out with a couple times. I'm just under 6 foot tall, right? She is just under 6 foot tall, and she repeatedly made not jokes, but kind of like she made a statement that she was making an exception for me because I was not quite 6 foot tall, and that 6 foot it as her for her. One of her patterns was, hey, I must be with someone who is at least a bit taller than me. That's one example. Another example I've heard of is sort of like you're wanting whether it's a physical thing or a money thing, in that, and even I think of a lot of my relationships, I've sort of seen patterns myself in the type of people who I've dated. Is that inherent? Is that is there always a pattern? And when must we break the pattern? Those aren't
those
patterns?
are more, yeah, those are more preferences. That's your preference. So
Okay.
your patterns are going to be, let's talk about how, where did you meet this individual? Who asked who out? How good was it? So we're going to go through, I could even find the document, but
okay.
A lot of times what ends up happening is, and I've done my own pattern, and what was happening is that I was just finding myself in these relationships. I didn't choose this individual. Or it was, I had a client one time that she was the one constantly asking out, that they weren't available, that there were certain things. So it's, we're picking these individuals who aren't really interested in us. So the height, financial, that might be preference. That's not a pattern. I would have asked, the person that you went on a date with, why are you making an exception? Why does it being over 6 foot tall? Like, I'm 5'8", I date 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", I wear 3 to 5 inch heels. So doesn't bother me, doesn't bother him. It's that confidence that you feel, I feel confident in my relationship and with the individual that I'm dating.
It's why she in this case was making this choice over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Is what you're interested in. So
yeah, and and why did she continue to go out with you? There were some other reasons that she liked you and chose to continue to go out with you, and it wasn't because of your height.
But the front line thing, at least in her head, was the height, but it's really something else.
Correct. So does she not feel confident with herself? Does she not feel, curvier women tend to date guys that are a little bit bigger because they don't want to break them. It's how they feel and how as a couple it makes them feel. But if you look at Kevin Hart and his wife, there's a huge height difference. Doesn't bother them. They're both confident. They're both happy. Well, they had their issues, but so there's others. So you have to dig down into why. So when you're doing those relationship patterns, I'm asking, it's probably about 7 or 8. Like, how did you meet this individual? How did you find yourself in a relationship? The goal is we're so worried about other people liking us that we're not worried if we like them. And that's something that we need to focus